So today I plan to have a conversation.
Lovely. Are you feeling okay today?
Much better.
Much better. I'm glad to hear it.
Well, last time you said you felt I didn't care about what you said. So are you ready?
Yeah.
Welcome to Summer First Experience. In this show, we'll be covering everything a new entrepreneur needs to know to set up their business and how you can grow and scale your business in the shortest possible time. If you have a question in mind, go to salmanfarsi.co/ask and submit your question. We might answer it in the next episode. Let's begin our today's episode. Today we're going to talk about human design. Can we find my human design today now?
Yeah, you can. Do you know your time of birth, place of birth?
I'm not exactly sure about the time, and I know the place.
Okay, let's have a quick look. If you don't want to disclose your age, you can do this yourself, or I can do it for you. Let me know what you want.
I'm totally open with my age. It's not a problem.
So, you are, and I'm not going to do a full-on reading. I'm obviously just going to touch on a few places. But what you are is a pure generator. You remember what we talked about last time?
Yeah. You didn't describe all the four either. You said there was 4 kinds of human design, right?
Yeah, almost, yeah. So there are 5.
Actually 5.
We have five different types of people in human design. We've got the generators and the manifesting generators, which make up around 70% of the world population. Then we've got the projectors, which make up around 20 to 22% of the world population. We've got manifestors, which make up roughly between 7 and 9%, and then the reflectors. And to give a very quick overview, as far as business is concerned, each type operates on a very, very different level when it comes to these things. And so when we look at every type specifically, we can start to understand how traditional business might not always apply. So when you started learning about business, what is it, for instance, that what is it that people have been telling you a lot of the time?
Don't get into business. Simple.
That's what people have told you?
Yeah. Simple though. I'm still in my university. I'm still in my university. In my country, it's like focus on your study, get a job, blah 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 blah. I'm not interested in those kinds of stuff.
Okay. So where is it that you want to take your business?
Where do I take on my business? I've joined this business. I didn't start this company. I have joined this business. I have planned to start another companies. I was interested in IT related stuff and branding, so I get into here. But I'm planning to shift somewhere else.
Oh, fantastic. Where would that be?
Sorry?
Where would that be?
Where would that be? Can you define it? What do you mean by where do you want to go with my business?
Well, you said that you have joined in branding and IT.
Yeah.
If you have to go somewhere else, I was just following up on the question of where would that be?
You said, where do I want to go? Right, with my business. So what do you mean by that? For my better understanding, I'm just asking you, what do you mean by where do I go? It's like, do you want to go, it's like, what's my mission or vision, or just like, what's it that you exactly want to know?
Both. What is it that, if branding and IT isn't what you want to do, what is it that you would like to do? And is it that you want to be doing this alone? Is it that you have a bigger mission? What is it?
Okay. Let me tell you a little bit of my backstory. 2020 was a breakdown for me. I will give a short preview. There was a time I lost all of my hopes. So, few things I have faced is like, I don't want anyone to see. It's like family pressures and in society, how they can affect on someone badly. I want to work on those sectors, and I will be working on with there. That's a long story.
That is amazing. And that is very, very, like, that is something that is so powerful. I have no other words.
Before helping others, I want to help myself first, because till now, I'm nothing.
That's not true. You have a podcast that already had 70 downloads from the last episode since September 17. I wouldn't necessarily say that's nothing. Okay, let's have a quick look at your design. Now, again, you lead the way. So what I can see with your design in particular is that you are someone who has a lot of thoughts. You are someone who can be very inspiring, but puts a lot of pressure on himself to organize their thoughts and to sort of put them in the same category. You don't necessarily have trouble making up your own opinion, but what can sometimes happen is that when you have an opinion and you have conceptualized something, you have trouble speaking it out loud. You have trouble finding the words.
Yeah.
And that is okay, right? That is absolutely okay. So by design, which is really interesting, you are someone who has the potential to be very inspiring to people. So when we say that, right, the top triangle of your head is colored in, which means that you have definition there. That means that you make up about 30% of the entire world population. The majority of us don't have a defined head. You do, which makes you very inspiring to the rest of us. So you having a podcast and you having a bigger mission of wanting to help people and empower other people, that's pretty fucking cool. And works with your design, by the way. What do you think?
I'm not getting the perfect word to say. I have feelings inside, but I'm not getting the perfect word. What to say?
That's okay. So that's very normal, right? You have an undefined throat. What an undefined throat means is that sometimes you can feel as though people don't hear you, right? You can be the loudest person in the room, especially if you have siblings. So if you are working with other people, I find that a lot of my clients who have open throats when they're white, when they have open throats, they struggle a little bit with networking, and so they tend to talk a lot. Or what I find sometimes with a lot of the males who have an open throat is they have learned very early on not to say a lot. And so they tend to keep quiet, which is a little bit of a shame, because you people with an open throat, everywhere where you are white in your chart is where you have the potential to be very, very wise. But it also means you have the potential to have the deepest conditioning that you need to go over. And so a lot of the time, people with that kind of open throat, and again, in business, this is something that's really interesting, right? When we have an open throat is when we look at when women do business who have an open throat in the human design chart, is they tend to talk a lot, right? Because otherwise they feel they can't be heard. They feel people don't hear them no matter how loud they scream. What I found with men, sometimes they obviously do the same, but again, at a very early age, they will have learned to just say nothing, and they tend to be quiet, which is really a sad thing, because anyone with an open throat has the potential to be very wise, which means that when you are open and trust that the right words will come to you at the right time, right? When you don't put yourself under pressure because you're a very inspiring person, you know your opinions, you know how to create concepts. When you start trusting that the words will come to you, but you don't have to find the pressure to say these things right now, right? It's also about pleasure. Do you want to speak? Do you do not want to speak, etc., rather than feeling you have to. That's when you say the things that have the most impact on people. And people with an open throat, you guys are so freaking powerful, because you say what the other person needs to hear and you don't even know it. You just say it when it feels right. Does that resonate?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there will have been times for you when you may have not necessarily known the answer to someone else's problem, but you trusted that, hey, you know what? I don't know the answer to the problem. But then you talk to the person and all of a sudden they felt better. Suddenly they knew what they needed to do. And that is the power of the open throat, because you mirror and amplify what the other person needs to get to that next level. It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
What's coming up?
How can I integrate this with my business?
So that's a really cool question. So when you look at marketing, right? When you look at marketing a lot of the time, especially when we talk about startups, what a lot of us have learned in the very beginning is to be present all the fucking time, right? Be on every social media platform, post at least 3 times a day, share with everyone and anyone, and it doesn't matter, right? Have no boundaries. As long as you share it, it's absolutely fine. People with an open throat, however, not only is that exhausting, and I don't ever recommend it, but if it lights you up as a generator, of course, by all means do it, but it can get very exhausting and can lead you to burnout. But anyone with an open throat, when it comes to marketing, what works really well for you guys to have the biggest impact is to speak when you feel that you can't hold it in. Have you ever had a message, like a message to your audience, a message to a friend, a message to a client, where you were just like, I need to say this. Like, I'm so excited. I need to just say the thing. And then it had such a big impact to them. Have you ever had that?
Yeah. It happens to me several times. Like, I'm saying whatever comes in my some random shit. It's like, I want to share something. I make a video about that. Based on my other videos, that videos get the most engagements.
They were the ones that were least prepped, right?
Yeah.
Right? Which is pretty cool, because if you think about it, what are we taught in traditional marketing and sales and in traditional business? You have to plan. If you don't plan, you plan to fail, right? That's what people tell us, but that's not always the case. That's not correct for everyone. It's correct for some people, but it's not correct for everyone. And especially you, let me just go back to your chart, especially you as a generator, you do like a certain amount of structure. You have something from the gate 5 defined in your sacral. You do like a certain amount of structure, you like a certain amount of routine, but it's unconscious for you, right? But with your open throat, it can take a little while for you to sort of get from the structure to actually saying the thing and knowing what it is that you need to do. So what you really need to understand is to give yourself the gift of time and be like, hey, you know what? I want some structure around this thing. I want to put out a video. I want to put out a post. I want to put out a marketing message. I want to put out this sale, right? But it'll take longer for you to find the right words if you pressure yourself into it.
I push myself a lot.
Which is something that society has taught us, right? What society has taught us is to just go out and do it. Go out and make it happen. Go out and take control. Go out and do the thing, right? For you as a generator, your strategy is to wait and respond. And you generators and manifesting generators are the only types who can gain clarity with yes or no questions. Have you, I don't know, I remember last time when we chatted very briefly, you said that the whole sort of astrology and spirituality and all of these things, you're not very familiar, you weren't really into it, it's fine, you don't have to be, right? But as far as intuition is concerned, when you have that gut feeling, let's call it a gut feeling, think about the times when you felt physically pulled forwards or backwards to something, and the times when you have logic your way into or out of something. Which were the times that you regretted the least? When something excited you when you did it, or when you made yourself think that you wanted it?
That's tough, actually. Because I like to calculate everything.
Yeah, that is true. You do have that in your design. Yes.
Whatever I do, before doing that, I calculate all the possible ways where can it goes. For example, about the podcasting, I plan to launch the podcast on this 5th of this September. Then I postpone it on 12. Then again 14. Finally, I reached at 16. Before doing that, it's like I researched for about a week, and I have to market it. Before doing any interview, what I will do, how I will promote this, I plan that before doing any of starting anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically like to think logically most of my time. I think less. Yeah, I follow logic mostly.
Interesting. You do have the channel of logic in your design. And what is really, really cool in your design is that gate 5. So I told you that you are someone who likes a little bit of structure. You are someone who likes a little bit of routine, right?
Yeah.
That gate that governs that routine is in your earth placement, in your unconscious earth placement. You don't need to know what that means. All it means is that one of the ways that you can ground yourself into feeling sure, into doing the thing that you're here to be putting out into the world, is by allowing yourself to have that kind of structure. But what I was talking about as far as intuition is concerned, as a generator type, what happens very often, so let me start with the type in particular. So the generator type's strategy to gain the most flow, to create ease in their life, to create work, be inspired, to do anything that it is that you want to be doing, is to wait and respond to something, right? And then you make a decision as to whether or not you want to go for it based on how excited you are, how lit up you are. What happens with a lot of generators is that they've been told to just go do it. That doesn't always work, because then you basically don't have the life force to do it. That makes you frustrated. Your response to that frustration is more work, because then you're just like, holy fucking shit, this isn't working. Yes, that I need to get this done. So I'm going to put in 16 hours instead of 8 hours. I will get this done. And basically you rinse and repeat this cycle of frustration, work, frustration, more work, frustration, more work. And eventually you burn yourself out. And that is something that happens very, very often with generators, because when you're not taught how to wait and respond, which goes very, very fast if you allow it, right? That's when that frustration turns against you. Whereas the frustration is actually, like, you will be very familiar with this feeling of frustration.
Yeah.
Right? And so what a lot of generator types do when they're frustrated is they quit before they need to be quitting, because you're here to master something. You are here for mastery. As a generator type, the thing that lights you up, the thing that you want to be doing, which is why I asked you earlier, what is it that you actually want to be doing? If that lights you up, you will start creating the necessary workforce energy, because you have a sacral, and the sacral governs the creation of that life force energy. This is why you're called a generator, because you generate energy. The rest of us don't have that. we require you to be excited about what you have so that we can borrow a little bit of that energy. And you will know this because every time you're excited about something and you like get your head in there and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is amazing. All the other people around you, suddenly they have the energy to do the same thing. And as soon as you're gone, they're like, oh,
Absolutely.
I'm a bit tired. I'm a little bit, right? I'm a bit tired and etc. So that is, for instance, one of the things that human design teaches us is how can we become one together and work together. And if you think about that in business, right? Whenever we do the thing that we don't want to be doing, you as a generator, you don't generate the necessary workforce to master the thing that you want, which makes you frustrated. Then you potentially quit, which a lot of generators do. Then you go and do the next thing. And then you are frustrated because you are not mastering the thing that you want to be doing. Right? When the opposite of that frustration is satisfaction. When you are satisfied with your work, when you are satisfied with your day, when you are satisfied with yourself, that is the highest expression in human design for your emotional theme. That is when you know you're in alignment.
It's interesting because works makes me happy. Mm-hmm. If I'm sad, either I smoke or I will go to work. That's how I live my life. Mostly it's like I escape my all those negative stuff by doing work.
And sometimes you do too much work?
Actually, I do daily. It's not sometimes. Daily minimum of 12 hours to 12 to 16 hours a day.
Wow.
Minimum 12 hours.
So what would an ideal day of work look like for you? What would you like it to look like?
What would you like?
Not what makes sense. What would you like?
I'm happy with whatever. 12 hours is absolutely fine. Because I'm enjoying it. It's not something, it's like someone putting pressure on me to do this or I have to do that. I enjoy it.
That means you have the energy to keep going, right? So that's pretty cool. So let me look what else we have in here. You have in your design an open heart center. An open heart center is what we have. The majority of the population have an open heart center. Only 30% of the population have a defined will center. And the defined will center is here for your motivation, for your willpower, and yours is completely open. So what that can sometimes mean is that when you say that you want to be doing something, it can take you a little while to stick to it.
Actually, that's not true.
Okay.
Because when I say I want to do, before saying that I will do something, I calculate.
Okay.
Maths. I was not able to agree with the last statement you said.
You were what? Sorry.
I said the last thing you said that doesn't match with me.
Okay, no, that's absolutely fine. But what we have to understand is that if we don't know your exact birth time, some of the things that I'm seeing in your chart might be a little bit off, right? So I'm just going by the 3 p.m. But it is likely that you still have an undefined heart because I just did a little side thing. So with what the what the undefined heart does a lot of the time is that it tries to prove its worth to other people. When someone has a defined heart, what it does a lot of the time is that they seek value in things, which is very, like, we all seek value in things. It's what we've been conditioned to societally. But when we have an undefined heart, we sometimes feel the pressure to prove our value to other people. What can sometimes happen in business, right, especially if we're starting out, is we try to prove our worth to our clients in form of over-delivering, in form of pricing ourselves low or too high, depending on where you are on the spectrum of wanting to prove yourself, right? In form of over-giving, right? Even if we are steadfast in the program that we are offering, what can very often happen with people with an undefined heart is that they then feel like, oh my God, yeah, I'm going to give you that bonus too. And oh my God, yeah, I'm going to give you that thing too, in the hopes of gaining the approval of the other person and to be seen as valuable. And that happens to a lot of people who have that undefined heart, which is why we need to be very careful when we're starting out in business, that we don't get someone who's burning themselves out by offering a $50 course and then giving their entire knowledge base away, which happens a lot of the time with someone with an undefined heart, because they're just like, I just want to prove my worth to people. I want to show that what I do is valuable. Does that sound like something you've seen with your clients and with yourself?
I would say 50-50. Not really true and not really false.
No, but have you noticed this with other startups in your audience? Have you ever seen anyone who is over delivering, who is giving this? So when we look at the audience that you have,
I've seen a lot of them.
Right, and what that obviously, right, and it originates from this whole point of the customer is always king, the customer is always right, which is like it doesn't make sense, because what we need to understand is that no one is better or worse. The customer isn't better than the person providing the service, and the person providing the service isn't better than the customer. When we start understanding that they're all equal, right, two people making an exchange out of pleasure, that's when we can start to understand, hey, you know what I do is valuable, what you do, what you want is also really good. Let's go with each other. And that's where it generally comes from, which is really interesting to understand. So when you look at your audience, for instance, what are some of the biggest struggles that they tend to face?
Figuring out everything. What to do and what not to do.
Right. So this is where you can be such a powerful force for your audience, right? Figuring out what to do, how to do it, when to do it is a question that people with an undefined head center will ask themselves, which is the majority of the population, right?
Yeah.
So they put a lot of pressure on themselves to find out, hey, you know what, to figure out the answers. So there you are with your definition in your head, who has the potential to be so inspiring that in your presence, they get access to those answers, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely. I don't have any question actually.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can.
I have to change my setup.
Cool. Let's look at one last thing. Let's see what else you have. So, according to your design, with the information that I have, you have an undefined identity center, which means that, again, depending on whether or not the time is correct that we've been given and the placements are correct, which means that a lot of the time you're a bit of a chameleon when it comes to people. Depending on who you're around, you can sort of change your identity a little bit, which is not a bad thing. That is exactly correct for you to be doing, because you're very wise about, you're quite empathetic with people. You can put yourself in their shoes. You can see it from their sides. You can understand what it is to be them. And a lot of the times people with an undefined identity center have been given a little bit of a hard time that you're not you and you're changing when you're around other people, which is not true. That is how you're designed to be. It is incredibly powerful because it means that you can literally adapt who you are to be the right presence to the right people.
Absolutely. I changed fast.
Right? So imagine what that would mean for you in your business if you understood that that is not a weakness of yours, but that is actually one of your strengths. Imagine if you understood that you being able to adapt your personality to whoever is currently in front of you is actually one of your powers. That would change sales calls. That would change networking. That would change podcasts. That would change so much. Have you ever given yourself a hard time for changing so much in front of people? You may not have. You may be very comfortable with your identity shifts. A lot of the people who have this, and women especially, a lot of the people who have an open identity center, when they go networking, they feel overwhelmed because as soon as they exit the presence of the other person, they're like, what the hell just happened? Who was I there, right? But you may be very comfortable with who you are and how you change with people and how you are a bit of like a chameleon when it comes to the identity of other people.
Absolutely. Actually act differently, totally differently based on the peoples.
Yeah. That is your strength. That is one of your superpowers. Imagine how you can put people at ease, how you can empathize with them so much more because you have that ability. It's pretty cool. And so if you put all of these things together, right? And again, I've only touched the surface of all of these things that I see in the chart that you've been given. What that means for business a lot of the time is really, okay, well, how can you make business yours, right? If you are designed to be someone who is adaptable in his personality, if you are designed to be someone, which you are, to be very logical and to find hows and to sort of find inspiration to conceptualize this, but take his time to start speaking the words because your words have so much power, that changes everything in business, because what we've been taught in business was this whole thing of go and do, go and make it happen, go and force, take the yes, always be selling, all this bullshit. But what we really need for you to stand in your full power to have the highest impact with what it is that you were saying, right? Helping people overcome the stresses that you have overcome, but you want to help yourself first so you can kind of do this, right? That's fucking powerful.
Maybe.
Do not underestimate yourself here.
Okay.
We have too many people in this. Think about this, and I don't know if this is coming from you. You might just be thinking that, yeah, maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. I don't know. But there are so many people out there who don't feel like they're capable of changing some part of themselves and part of the world out there. But if everyone trusts in themselves just that little bit more, instead of what we've been conditioned as a society, and as a society, we have been conditioned to always trust another person, our parents, our teachers, our bosses. Everyone else knows us better than we do ourselves. What a lot of horse crap. How could they? How could they know us better than we do? They can't. They haven't walked a mile in my shoes, in your shoes. They can't.
Yeah.
I don't know you better than you know yourself. That's bullshit.
I personally don't trust anyone.
Good. Right? But there are so many people who are like, hey, you know what? Your teacher said this, you should go and do this. The government says this, you should go and do this. It's what we've been conditioned to do. But when you start trusting yourself, you can show up a lot more powerfully. Because if there was one way to do business, if there was one way that is guaranteed to give success, like you've probably read these books, like people who talk about the 5 a.m. club. If you want to be successful, you have to get up at 5 a.m. What a load of crap. What a load of, like, if getting up at 5 a.m. would make people rich, we'd all be getting up at 5 a.m.
Actually, go to bed at 5 a.m.
Oh, if that's what you want to do, you don't do it, right? But do you see what I mean? It's like, it's always this one thing. It's something called a survival bias. It's we look at the one person who attributes their success to this one thing, but we ignore all the people who also get up at 5 a.m. and they're not millionaires, right? And that is why personally I quite like human design and I like using it in business, because it's literally giving you access to, okay, you know what? If it gives you permission to be who you are, if on some level it did for you, great, because then you can start marketing yourself in a way that works for you, not that works for someone else. Because if you do it someone else's way, you'll start getting frustrated, you'll start burning yourself out, you'll not see the success that someone else does. That's why these whole 3-step formulas and these courses, like, they might work for one person, but they may not work for you. And so what would work for you? When you understand yourself first, well, then you can start creating processes that do.
Absolutely. I personally like to test everything, test different things. It's like, what is working, what is not working? How can I know without trying it?
Well, testing is an important part of it, right?
Yeah.
Testing is an important part of it. But the point is that, and you'll probably see this in your audience, a lot of the people don't even try because of the fear of, but what if it goes wrong? What if I lose a client? What if I lose a sale? Right? You may not feel like this, but when I look at myself, when I started years ago, I didn't do a lot of things I wanted to do out of fear of being judged, out of fear of being ridiculed, out of fear of not being good enough, out of fear that I don't look like what I wanted to present. And so I didn't do that. I was following someone else's rules and I was wondering, why the hell didn't I see the success they said I would see? I was the perfect student. I was sitting there and I was marketing the way I was told I should market. I was finding provocative headlines because apparently that was the thing that was selling. Yeah, sure, I got the likes, I got the internet points, great, well done, but I didn't get the sales. When I started quitting all of that and when I started understanding, hey, you know what? This doesn't work for me and I also don't like it. I don't like forcing provocative, like I hate the clickbaity headlines. I hate them. When I started doing business my way, well, guess what? Sales started flooding in. When I started understanding my design, when I started understanding that as a projector, I am not here to work the traditional 9 to 5, that I am not here to go and just give people my advice without them asking for it, that I need to wait for the invitation. But that wasn't taught in traditional business schools.
The whole concept of business, I think, needs to be changed.
How so?
when the people start at the early stage, it's like in their 20s or 30s, I found that they don't know what to do.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? I have to think of like these things. I'm not getting the words again.
That's totally fine. That's absolutely fine. But you see, like, you don't have to put yourself under pressure. It's okay to say, hey, you know what? I'll get back to you on that. Fine.
Yeah. So you have spent 7 years in IT sales, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what should we never do in sales?
I love that question. What should we never do in sales? So I was taught by a traditional white middle-aged man that no means yes. Well, first of all, that's not something you should ever be doing. But something that bothered the most out of me was this feeling of that you had to be the alpha. Something that I was taught in IT sales was you had to take charge. Yes, you have to lead a conversation, of course, but leading is very different from forcing. And what we were taught back in the days was ask questions that lead them to the sales, aka that lead people to the force. Whereas what I have found works a lot better, especially when it comes to women in sales, but also with some men that I have coached, is when we start understanding that sales is a mutual exchange of pleasure, not me trying to put my hand in your wallet and try and take as much money, like rinse you for as much money as I possibly can, which leads to buyer's remorse, which leads to refunds, which leads to God knows how many things. That is essentially what I've been taught. And so what we should never ever do is get the sale no matter what. We should never ever be doing this. What we should be doing, in my opinion, and again, take this as it works for you, is to understand, okay, well, how can I help the client that isn't yet paying me, but is here to speak with me? Because they first of all, they wouldn't come onto a sales call if they didn't want to buy from you. They're just trying to figure out in what capacity, like what form that could take. And so how can we help the client come to a decision that's in their best interest and yours? And that's a nicer reframe for me, because all of a sudden, just because a client is in front of you doesn't mean that it's the right client. If you've ever worked with clients that have called you every second, that have called you in the middle of the night that disrespected your boundaries, that have not paid you on time, if you've ever worked with clients who have literally overstepped every single boundary that you could possibly want, then no money in the world is worth saying yes to that client. So do we really need to go over the fact that no, you should not always be going after the sale, because some sales are not worth having.
Yeah. It's better to have no customer than a toxic customer.
Absolutely, because you pay, they might pay you in money, but you're paying them with your brain space. They live there rent-free, your mental capacity, your time. You pay them so much more. And it's much more likely that out of these almost 8 billion people that we have on this planet, that one person that you're not going to work with, there's going to be someone you do want to work with and who actually pays you well and respects your boundaries.
Actually, in other words, I am giving the most of the values. We are doing exchanging values, and I am giving, let's say, 10 times than what I am taking.
Yep.
So this should be my powers. I am doing giving the most of the things.
Giving value and throwing away your expertise are two very different things. because you can give value without exerting a lot of your time and effort, right? That is why your talent, like if someone's playing piano, for instance, and it gives value to the listeners, if they're at a concert, it might not take much work for them to pull the keys and to be creating beautiful music. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't give equal amounts of value, if not more, to their audience. What we are saying is that when we are giving a lot of value, is that we're not giving it all away. And yes, you should be paid for the expertise. You should get paid well for the expertise that you are giving, because you don't owe the world your wisdom. You don't owe the world the fact that you have spent years learning your craft, years honing your genius. You don't owe anyone any of that. The fact that you make it available in a neat little package, that makes you a pretty epic human being, because otherwise they would spend hours going on YouTube, Googling, Wikipedia, spending money on courses, trying to gain that knowledge themselves. You make it available to them in a small, neat package.
Yeah. So what are the other things we should not do in sales?
Talk too much. Talk over the clients. Something that I found a lot of the time, something when in my sales trainings, the thing that people struggle with the most is that when they're nervous, especially, is they talk more than the client or the potential client, and they're not actually listening to what it is that they need. And they have a customer on the telephone or on Zoom or wherever it is that they want to have the client on, or even on Facebook Messenger or an Instagram Messenger. And they just talk, they hear, hey, I'm interested in your services, and they immediately start pitching without actually finding out what it is that that person needs. Because while we're experts in our field, our client is not. Otherwise, they wouldn't come for us to help, right? And so I am very, very strong on integrity. If we as business owners can't take the time to get to know our customers and be like, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm not the right step for you. Maybe I'm not the right step for you yet. Maybe there's a step before that. It's about honesty, right? And so what we really should be doing is helping, again, comes back to what's the best decision for the client, not for my wallet. When we start making sales that way, you'll actually gain more sales. There's a lot of fear involved in that, because whenever I start teaching this, it's very much like, yeah, but won't I lose customers that way? Won't I lose clients if I then tell them, no, you create loyalty? But also a lot of the time, that trust that people then place in you, they will very often buy anyway, if that is obviously still something that they want to be doing at that point. Sales increase massively when we start putting trust in our clients, but also in our ability to say no.
What would be a good time, a good position to say no? It's like, how can we understand? It's like, I should say no to this client or this customer.
What are your boundaries, right? 3 questions that I like to ask. I teach all of my clients when it comes to any sale is, and from all these questions that you ask yourself, that all of them have to be a yes. Do you want to work with them? Do you like them? Can you help them? If any of them is a no, then that is when you would likely want to turn the client away, or change the scope, or find any other way to sort of see, there's a little bit of a hiccup. Because think about it, a client comes to you and says they want to work with you, but let's say you like them, you can help them, but you don't want to help them for whatever reason, right? Then you start working with them, you take their money, but you don't enjoy the work that you're doing, which means the quality of your work will actually decrease, which means that the client ultimately in the long run won't be as happy with you, right? Let's say it's the other way around. But let's say you want to help them, you can help them, but you really don't like them. Self-explanatory. If you don't like the client that you want to work with, you're going to be paying them so much more in time with your nerves and your mental clients, but also there's something that any money in the world just isn't worth it. You're building your business so that you can work with clients that you like. Why would you want to take on clients that you don't like? Let's say it's the other way around. Maybe you like them and you want to help them, but you can't help them. Or if you can't help them, you should never take them as a client anyway. Never. And so these are if any of these three questions are a no, that's when I would generally say you gently turn people away and help them. Okay, well, what is the next step that they could take? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So basically, ask yourself three questions. Do I like them? And I can I help them or not? And I want to work with them or not?
Mm-hmm. Can you help them? Do you want to help them? Do you like them?
Yeah.
And if any of them is a no, I would generally say the answer to working with them is a no. Obviously, there are other factors as well. Maybe you don't agree with their work ethic. Maybe there's you don't owe anyone an explanation. Sometimes you see a person and you just don't like them. They look good on paper, but in person you're like, oh God, no. Guess what? You don't have to take them on. There is no obligation for you to take on a client.
Absolutely. It's been an hour.
Yes.
I have a question. It's like weird question. No, it's not weird questions. How many cats do you have?
Sorry?
How many cats do you have?
One.
It's like in my house, there are around how many? Right now, 16 or 17?
I don't know if that's genius or slightly crazy, but I'm kind of here for it.
Within the last 2 months, I have adopted around more than 12 cats. There was around literally 25 to 30 cats. My mom just loves cats.
Wonderful. I love cats too. Well, that's lovely. It sounds like those cats are in good hands with your mom.
Yeah, it's like whenever I'm sleeping in my bed, there are minimum of 3 to 4 cats.
That's so cute. Oh, very nice. I'm afraid I do have to leave.
Yeah.
Because I have another call in 5 minutes.
So, and last word for our listeners?
Any last words? If any of this conversation has given them anything, is like if something feels wrong, then it's probably wrong for you. So honestly, just do you. If you want to do business a certain way, if you don't like the way someone teaches you business, like try doing it your own way. The worst thing that can happen is that nothing changes. The best thing that can happen is that something does change and you actually see some really good traction.
That was nice. So I was planning to publish our both episodes on this Tuesday or Thursday next, it's like 28 and 30. Or should I post it on 5 or 7 October?
Your podcast, mate.
Sorry?
Your podcast. You make noise.
Okay. Did I ask you the last time? Did I ask you to where can our listener find you? That question.
You may have done, yes.
So we don't have to ask it again. Okay, so it's long time. See you again.
See you again.
Thanks for joining us today. Hit the subscribe button, and if you are listening this on Apple Podcast, please leave a review. This will really help us to make our future episodes better. Have a question in mind? Go to sonofarsi.co/ask and submit your question. We see every submission and we might answer it in the next episode. Thanks again for listening. We will see you on Tuesday and Thursday. Have a great week.